We begin in New York, where Germany has failed to win a seat on the United Nations Security Council. In a vote by the UN's General Assembly, Germany lost out to Portugal and Austria for two temporary seats from the regional group Western Europe and others. The UN Security Council is considered the United Nations' most powerful body and consists of 15 members, 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent members that each have 2-year terms. Today, Austria, Portugal, Trinidad and Tobago, Zimbabwe and Kyrgyzstan were elected by the UN's General Assembly as members for the coming term starting in 2027. Well, let's listen to the German foreign minister's reaction after the result was announced.
For this federal government, and also for myself, I can say that we fought up to the very last minute. We gave everything we had. And yes, there are some issues we have always taken a clear position on. Positions not all UN member states share.
Our correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber is in New York and has been following this vote all along. Benjamin, Germany has failed to win a seat on the Security Council. How much of a diplomatic blow is this for Berlin?
It is a huge diplomatic blow, especially considering that Germany lost in the first round. It wasn't clear who would make it. A very strong race that we've seen two strong contenders, Austria and Portugal. So what we heard from the German delegation is that they have been doing this lobby work, of course, for years. But now, especially in these final days, Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul, who we just heard that he arrived on Thursday last week, he has been meeting dozens of delegations to try to get their vote. But as we just heard him, they are very disappointed German Foreign Minister who mentioned these issues that says not everyone is on Germany's side. He mentioned German support for Ukraine, German support for Israel, and also that this candidacy was announced pretty late, comparing it to the candidacies from Lisbon and also of Vienna, of Austria, the two countries that will have this non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council.
So you mentioned what the foreign minister said there with Germany supporting Ukraine and Israel. Were those considered controversial enough by other members of the UN General Assembly to stop Germany from winning?
So you mentioned additional 2 points, but to get to your question, Terry, so he mentioned the steadfast support by Ukraine. He especially also talked about Russia, saying that there is definitely a country that would not like to see Germany in the Security Council. He also mentioned a Russian negative campaign that Russia launched by talking to other members, trying to get them to not vote for Germany. But it is German support for Israel, especially in the Arab world, even though German officials try to downplay it, saying that there are many similarities. But that is a very critical point in this candidacy for this Security Council, as many accuse Germany of a double standard when it comes to human rights, when it comes to rule of law. And that's a criticism that not just Germany, but also Annalena Baerbock, who was the German foreign minister before Johann Wadephul, who is still the president of the General Assembly, has faced over and over her turn now.
European countries normally avoid open competition with each other for Security Council seats, as you know. Why did this election turn into a three-way public battle between Germany, Austria, and Portugal?
That's right. They usually try to avoid exactly this, to have several rounds of voting. This could have continued for hours. We were prepared to have not 1, but 2 or 3 rounds of voting until the candidates get the required 2/3 majority of all the members in the United Nations General Assembly. It wasn't necessary because this was only one vote. In Germany officially announced the candidacy very late. Portugal and Austria had announced that they would be running for these 2 seats for the Western European and others, that's the name of the group, countries. But then Germany continued and has been applying for this non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council for every 8 years. But this is the first time that it failed. It would have been the 7th term of Germany as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, but that will not be the case. So we can expect more reactions not only here in New York, but also in Berlin, because this would have been good news for the German government that has been facing a lot of criticism from the public in Germany.
There's been talk for years, Benjamin, about the possibility of Germany becoming a permanent member of the Security Council. Does that look even less likely now in light of today's vote?
So there have been discussions ongoing for a long time that there needs to be a restructuring of this, the most important body of the United Nations, the Security Council, and not when it comes to the non-permanent members that do not have a veto, but when it comes to the 5 permanent members that have a right to veto that has been used, especially on the US side when it comes to Gaza, on the Russian side when it comes to Ukraine. There have been conversations of more countries or organizations joining the Security Council as permanent members, but this setback for Germany not even getting as a non-permanent member, not even getting a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council will definitely not help a possible future push to be one of the permanent members with a veto right at the Security Council.
Benjamin, thank you very much. DW's Benjamin Alvarez Gruber in New York.
All right, DW's Berlin Bureau Chief Max Hofmann, he has been following this vote for us. So, Max, we know that Germany wanted a seat on the Security Council. It lobbied hard for it. How big of a hit is this?
This is a pretty big hit, especially if you consider the timing, Brent, the state of the government in general, which is very unpopular. This would have been a breath of fresh air. This could have been a victory that this government puts in front of it and said, look, things are looking up and we'll put all our weight into the Security Council to make this, well, a better world. That's always the ambition if you are in the Security Council. Whether that would have been possible is a different story, but now nothing will be possible because Germany didn't get that non-permanent seat.
How big of a surprise is this outcome, Max?
To tell you the truth, and we're not alone with that, we thought this was likely to be a success story. And in our talks with representatives from the foreign ministry, for example, there was also cautious optimism. But the whole campaign was more difficult than many campaigns in the past because in the bloc, which Germany is part of, the Western European and other countries, that's what this bloc is called, there were 2 other campaigns from Austria and from Portugal. So friends, not really competitors here. And there are only 2 seats for that bloc. Now, Austria and Portugal declared their campaign much earlier than the Germans, who only declared their campaign in 2019. I know it sounds like a lot of time, but in these circles, you need even more time. So there was a lot of competition there. And in the end, that didn't help Germany.
And Max, we know that these votes can be very political. Did Germany lose some support because of its unwavering support of Israel?
That's a question we heard a lot in the last weeks, and that I also heard in New York City when I was with the German foreign minister in New York a couple of weeks back, and that was during a very heavy stretch of campaigning. Very impressive, by the way, the workload that the foreign minister had there with all the ministers and the representatives of states. He met there with the ambassadors, probably about well over 100 in total, and that question was asked back then too. Now the truth is we can't know because those votes are secret, right? And so nobody will know for sure what the reasons were, especially because there are different reasons for every country to vote for another country. These votes usually are pretty transactional. It's like, okay, we'll vote for you now, and then you vote for us next time for a different position or something like that. But a lot of observers do believe that this position might have hurt or might have not helped at least, but that's not the only political position Germany has. There's also its political position on Ukraine, for example. And what we've been hearing is that Russia had a pretty aggressive campaign in the back against Germany. How successful that was, also hard to say, because in the end, there will never be disclosure why certain countries voted the way they did. They might even claim they voted a certain way, but voted a different way. So it's a very complicated maneuver, but the question you asked, we've heard that one before. Yes.
Yeah. And we know, Max, that money talks, or money is supposed to talk. Germany is the second largest financial contributor to the UN after the United States. Did that not matter?
It does give Germany certain leverage, and it does that independently from a seat in the Security Council. And it's certainly appreciated in UN circles. At least that's what I heard when I was there and talked to representatives of other countries. Again, how much of a role that played, we can just say it wasn't enough, and it's not like Germany was very close to the required, I think in this case, 127 votes, because not everybody was present. Normally it's 129 votes to get the 2/3 majority. They had 104 votes, so that's a bit far off, and I think you have to look at it as sort of an ensemble of different reasons. First of all, the late declaration policies obviously play a role. Maybe they got some votes because of their financial contributions, but in the end, in the sum of it, it was just not enough.
All right, DW's Max Hofmann on Germany's losing bid to get that temporary seat on the Security Council. Max, thank you.